Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hi, that's right. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Boy, oh boy. It is St. Patrick's Day. It's Thursday, March 17th, because that's what St. Patrick's Day is. That's it. It's not always a Thursday, so I threw that one in there just for some extra information. 2022 is the year. That was true yesterday. Remains true for, some months now. So, I don't know. I guess I'll keep repeating that just in case you think it might be a rerun. And eventually we're going to have to get to that. It's getting to be spring break season, which means it's also getting to be college visitation season. And I do have that coming up at some point. And I think even within the month of March, though spring break won't have arrived for the high school kids here, we got a visit to do before the end of next week, I think, and I have to plan ahead for that and see if I can't get things pre-recorded. There's certainly a mountain of material I could borrow from, but that's where we are today. NCAA basketball tournament starts today. Haven't filled out a bracket. I'll have about an hour after the show, I think, to get something submitted. I'll see if I can muster the energy to do it. I think I skipped it last year. It's actually quite stressful for me, and I don't know why, because, I don't know, I want to win it, and I want to have the right analysis, and there is no right analysis. It's all a coin toss, but I can never convince myself to simply do coin tosses each year, even though I throw away the money regardless. Maybe this will be the year that I muster the courage during the next 2 hours to just do some sort of coin flip type system, but you can't do it because, what's the point of doing a coin flip on a 1/16 game? So I try to come up with other simple solutions like, best out of 5, or, whatever it is, for the first round, for seeds 1 and 2, at best out of 4, for lower seeds, and then 3, and then finally a coin toss. I don't know. Maybe a mathematician could give me a better system than that. The Kagro in the Morning radio show is live now. Today is St. Patrick's Day. I have mentioned that. And Kagro X has breaking news about the Irish boomerang. It doesn't come back. It just sings songs about how much it wants to. That's nice. I like that. Okay. In the modern Irish tradition, I have learned to code in Gaelic, I guess. And I'm starting an app company. That's what they're doing there these days. And nothing else that I did that was Irish Day. I don't think there's a speck of green on me at the moment. I realized yesterday I had one nice, green shirt left, and I wore it yesterday. So, whoops, so much for that. We'll see what I don't even know if I'm getting out of the house today anyway. So, it's also another brother's birthday, not to identify everyone too personally, but if you're running around and there's somebody that looks something like me, we don't look that much alike, but okay, there's something, there's some features there, and he's watching the basketball and having a good time. That's probably him, and out for drinks for his birthday and watching the basketball. If you see somebody somewhere stressing about basketball, even though they don't follow basketball, that's probably me. I have to get out of this. Anyway, many other things that much more important than that happening today. Big roundup of news coming. Greg has a large raft of stories all ready to go. Lots of suggestions from others, so we're at no loss for the material today. And here comes Greg, and the button to press to activate Skype is green. So great for St. Patrick's Day. Normal for the rest of the year too, but what the heck. Just thought I'd throw that in there. All right, so we're all clean cut and clean living for Irish celebration today. There's nothing to do with alcohol or the vicious rumors that the Irish people have difficulties with that. We're dispensing with that from now on, and we're all coding. So great. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. And interestingly enough, I have both an Irish notation here and a brothers notation here.
Oh, wonderful.
So which one would you like first?
We can combine the two of them. Let's do the brothers first.
The brothers. So we're going to talk about some Ukrainian brothers.
Ukrainian brothers.
Yeah.
Hilarious comedy team.
Hilarious comedy team. Well, actually, the Klitschko brothers.
Maybe. I don't know.
One of the brothers is actually the mayor of Kiev.
Aha, that is funny.
And it turns out, just so that you and your brother don't, feel like you have to live up to anything.
Okay.
The Kiev mayor, Vitaly, just to keep them apart.
They've done all the living up to.
Is the former heavyweight boxing champ who's also got a PhD and plays chess.
Well.
But his brother Vladimir is the former heavyweight boxing champ with a PhD and plays chess, but he's younger and taller, just so you can tell them apart.
Tail of the tape is more or less the same, but slightly taller on this side.
Right.
All
so
right.
Russia claims it's only hitting military targets, says Chris Reason. What does the Kiev mayor say to that? Bullshit, he spits. And this guy...
That's Bolshevik, they say.
Yeah. I mean, he looks like the guy that demolished Rocky, so...
Oh, really? Okay.
You don't want to argue with him. When he says bullshit, it's like, okay, where do I shovel it?
You got it. Right, okay.
A former boxing champion, Vitaly Klitschko, delivers knockout sound bites that get straight to the point. So, as Tim Mack reports from NPR, Kiev is still standing, and actually they're miserable, but feeling more confident about how everything is going, to the point that they're actually launching some counteroffensives.
Oh, wow.
And they're on the look for saboteurs. Who's a saboteur?
Like
Somebody who curses you out in Russian, so you go and investigate them.
Okay. Right. True. Well, all right. Lots to look over your shoulder when you're having a war with Russia.
Right, exactly. So interesting stuff. And
really.
Along those lines, well, not along those lines. Let me tell you the Irish story real quick.
Along other lines.
These are along other lines, but it's important. So it turns out that the Taoiseach, which is the Irish leader.
Oh, is that how you say it?
Taoiseach, Taoiseach, it's pronounced.
Really?
Has tested positive for COVID.
Oh.
Right before he was going to meet with Joe Biden, but I think after he met with Nancy Pelosi, or at least was sitting next to her.
Well, be careful, everybody.
He couldn't come to the St. Patrick's Day celebration, the Shamrock ceremony last year.
My goodness.
With Joe Biden, who's been known to be semi-Irish himself.
Biden.
And so he came this year, but was about to meet with Biden, and then got news that his antigen test was negative, but his PCR was positive. So he got pulled from the event after being there, and some members of his staff are also positive. So for those of you who think the pandemic is over, it's not over.
Yeah, I don't know what to say to that. I don't know any.
You have 9 some odd Democratic congressmen who went to a retreat, and they got sick.
9?
Obama has it.
Right.
This guy has it.
Everybody's got
Hopefully Pelosi and Biden don't get it.
Yeah.
So, no, the pandemic isn't over, and there's a lot more on that, too.
I don't know any down-sounding Irish phrases, which is something. Tells you something about them, I guess. I don't know, top of the morning, all that garbage that may not be said over there, but nothing like, oh, crap, this is terrible.
Well, you think you're having a terrible day? This is from Inside Edition. Daily Beast contributing editor Craig Kopetas says he's been told that Putin has people tasting his food before he eats it, and that last month he replaced his entire personal staff of 1,000 people.
Oh.
Now, there's nothing to the rumor that Donald Trump has been hired to eat Putin's food because Putin figures he's owed. That's simply rumor that I started.
He's only doing it because it's food. He just wants 2 scoops of
free food,
Yeah.
Well, Putin says we only eat cheeseburgers over here, so come right over.
Perfect. What do they
Vladimir
call that?
Putin appeared on Russian state TV today to denounce Russians who opposed his war with Ukraine as scum and traitors. But behind the scenes, the dictator is increasingly paranoid and fears that somebody in his inner circle will poison him.
Yeah, I
Daily
know.
Beast contributing editor Craig Kopetas says he's been told that Putin has people tasting his food before he eats it, and laundresses, secretaries, cooks, a whole new gang of people. The assessment from the intelligence community is that he's scared.
What did I
He
tell
says
you?
the preferred method of assassination in Russia is poison, and Putin should know. And then there's a list of all the famous people he's poisoned recently.
There's tax deductions for poisoning people there.
There's Litvinenko in 2006, a pot of tea with radioactive poison. Was an outspoken critic. 2018, Putin's henchmen sprayed deadly poison on the front door of former spy Sergei Skripal. He and his daughter narrowly escaped. Putin also allegedly ordered the poisoning of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny. He survived, but now is languishing in a Russian jail. So presumably, not only does Putin avoid tea, because it tends to be laced with polonium in the Kremlin, but he also avoids windows because people have a nasty habit of falling out of them.
Do windows. Yeah. Well, you heard it here. I don't know, maybe second or third. But yeah, very early on, I think we were pretty clear. I think he's afraid of an assassination, and everybody was, no, it's COVID. He's distancing himself for COVID. It looks like assassination.
In case the bomb, he's read the World War II history stories, and he's afraid of a bomb going off at that end of the table.
Yeah. We were right.
It's probably an armored table.
Give us something, some sort of government position.
The table's made of titanium, but only made to look like wood.
Yeah. Well, they have all sorts of... Well, they're a very paranoid society and always have been. Although I gave the Irish a break today on their stereotypes. But Russia's involved in an war of aggression, and we're angry with them.
Right. So, of course, the big news from yesterday was Zelensky's series of speeches. Yesterday was the U.S. turn.
Yes.
And yes, he did use Pearl Harbor and 9/11 in a very, very professionally put together slick video designed to pull at your heartstrings.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
And yes, he said we need a no-fly zone. And America's been through this, and you know how we feel, and you have to help us, and look at these people getting bombed and stuff like that. Very effective stuff. So somebody should hire him to do Democratic campaigning because, he's really good at it.
Someone should give him a reason to be happy with Democrats.
Anyway, he wants a no-fly zone. He's not going to get it, but as many smart people have pointed out, this is an Overton window thing. You call for the no-fly zone you're not going to get so that you feel guilty and you give him everything else.
Okay, that might work. Like a little
and
it
would work beautifully. And then he goes out and he talks to the Germans and says, you people are all about business, not democracy. How about lightening up a little bit here?
Yeah, he likes the stereotypes.
I mean, the point is very effective messaging and knowing who's in the room.
Yeah.
That would not be an effective message in the U.S., but it is in Germany. On the other hand, the U.S. message that he did was very effective here.
Right. Well, I am revising his speech about when he goes to the Polish legislature, asking how many Polish legislators does it take to set up
Polish
a no-fly
jokes.
zone, right? So
No
don't do
Polish
that
jokes.
one. I'm telling him no.
Yeah, don't do it.
It's
don't
awful.
even go there. So
don't even
the thing is,
why are you doing this? I did that. All right, yes.
The thing is, as you point out,
to self, yes,
and as you pointed out, Zelensky is really good at this. He comes from a media communication background.
Yes,
and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Right. If there's any stars around, he'll dance with them.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Will Bunch notes Biden's strategy of crippling sanctions, essential but not provocative military supplies, and unifying NATO has been brilliant. Brave Ukrainians have stalled Putin's invasion, but we've dodged World War III. Why do so many want a dangerous, risky escalation now? And the answer is because Zelensky was tugging at your heartstrings, and people don't like the idea of women and children, especially pregnant women, being shot and killed or bombed, So, you'd like to do something, but you have to do it smart.
Okay.
Oh, that's so cruel. You just have to go in and, react emotionally. Well, that's why we lose elections.
Oh.
We're doing the smart thing, and it's not the emotional thing.
Okay. Well, yeah, we're supposed to get better at that.
The voters have to get better at that, but they're not.
Oh. Is it their fault?
I saw somebody, I don't know if this is true, but it was intriguing to me. Somebody posted the comment that the average American reads at a sixth grade level and the average Democratic ad is at a college level, and why don't we win?
All right, we'll have to translate for them.
I don't know. Look at Virginia.
All right. Yeah, that's true. Well, get older people, I guess, and then get them on your side, and then you can win.
Well, part of the other thing about what happened in Virginia that people note is that Youngkin made a deliberate effort to try to get out the vote in the Southwest and Trumpy areas. And Democrats have to take that strategy from the get-go and not stay silent in a strategic move to save money. Go out there and get the vote. This is definitely a turnout thing, not a persuasion thing these days.
Well, go get it.
Right. So Virginia was turnout. Virginia was not persuasion.
Right. Turn Out Virginia. That's a Billy Joel song.
Something like that. So, of interest, this is a thread by Major General just retired Mick Ryan, who tweets as War in the Future. And along with Tim Mack, essential follows for what's going on in Ukraine. Tim Mack notes that Kiev is still standing. He starts his morning report every day with that. And he was the one that was talking about the saboteurs,
Yes.
or purported saboteurs, and how the Ukrainians are just feeling a lot more confident than they were 3 weeks ago when all this started, and they were in shock. Not happy, miserable, but more confident about what's going on. So Major General just retired Mick Ryan says, 3 weeks since the Russian invasion of Ukraine began, the battle for Kiev is the focus of this thread. A caveat, it is not certain the Russians are capable of surrounding, attacking, or seizing Kiev.
Uh-huh.
As always, a shout out to those reporting on the Russian invasion, and he names names. Please follow them, including the Kiev Post.
All right.
325, 3 out of 25.
Wow, okay.
Russia has not
That's so
achieved
long,
its key
really.
military objectives in the northeast or south. It's committed all of the military forces it had on these missions. As I noted 2 days
can't
ago, the
believe
Russian
that.
campaign, if it is not already, is about to culminate.
I can't believe they don't have more.
With the strain on the Russian forces and their slovenly plans, and by the way, the reports the Russians are sending more troop deployments to Belarus.
To Belarus.
Whether they're using Belarus as a staging area or not is unclear,
Like,
but
okay.
that's a story.
I don't know
With
if
the
they're doing that
strain
or
on the
invading
Russian
Belarus.
forces and their slovenly plan showing, the Russian high command has gone back to drawing board again with their campaign design, and we're now seeing Russia's Plan C campaign in Ukraine. I assume that's because they've already lost 4 or 5 generals.
Yes.
I mean, there's
they're
a huge
losing
story in the New York
hand
Times
over
about
fist.
that. 7,000 at least Russians killed, according to conservative U.S. estimates, and you figure that the wounded are 3 times that. So between 2 or 3 times that, you've got 10% of the Russian forces who have been either killed or wounded. So if you
5% of them
have
are
10%
generals.
casualties, say the military experts, you're starting to get into ineffective squad territory here.
All right. Is that the number?
Yeah.
that they
I mean,
use
if you
these
lose 10% of your people, you can't carry out your mission.
Well,
in other
that's
words.
always bad. But yeah, I wondered if there's a modern warfare, critical number.
That's your metric,
Yeah.
10%.
At some number.
Say
Okay,
the
I guess
experts.
it's not working.
So Plan C, and at this Stratego, and you lost your general, you'd be in trouble. I guess
yeah.
you'd have a marshal left, but
Russian
they've already
spy,
lost
'cause
3
all
generals, maybe
spies.
4, maybe 5 if you count the Chechen guy.
You have to. He's there.
Well, he's a
fighting.
Chechen warlord. I don't know if that counts as he's general of the Chechens.
Warlords. That's what they call
Marshal of the
Somalian
Chechens.
warlords,
Right?
generals.
Plan C can be described as hold current gains, long-range firepower on cities, foreign fighters as cannon fodder. That's why they're calling for Syrians and other, brother fighters to come help us.
Why would you?
Destroy as much infrastructure and manufacturing as possible, expand the war to the west, and deter foreign volunteers and aid providers.
I mean,
So that's their
It's a
plan.
plan.
That's their
It's-
plan C. So
all
we
right.
can't win, so let's try to destroy everything. The new Russian campaign also seems to have a punitive, almost medieval aspect to it. Of course, medievalists hate having medieval as a pejorative. The Bright Ages and all that, not the Dark Ages. The Russians appear to be punishing the Ukrainian people for daring to stand against the Russian bear while hoping they capitulate. Hope is a bad course of action in war. A key part of Russia's Plan C appears to be the Russian encirclement and capture of Kiev. On 6 March, I explored how Russia might do it. In the 11 days since, the Russians have slowly closed on the Ukrainian capital, but at a very high cost. And why does Kiev matter? It's the main effort for the Russian military campaign. Russian possession of Kiev is essential for Putin's desired political end state for the war, and the importance of the Ukrainians has only grown as Zelensky leads his nation. Holding Kiev also provides a major psychological boost for Ukraine soldiers and civilians. That's why Tim Mack starts every day saying, well, Kiev hasn't fallen.
Right.
So to the Russian president, the capture of Kiev is essential to his defeat.
all right.
That is to say, Putin's defeat of Ukraine, because it's all personal with him. What might be the key features of any battle? First, the Russians are severely short in personnel. They can't take the city. They can't take the whole city. They'll focus only on key nodes and parts of the city. And second, urban operations are significantly more expensive in human life than combat operations in other environments. We'll see a spike in casualties, both civilian and military, and it'll be a large spike. And then he cites a piece here that says new research shows urban warfare 8 times more deadly for civilians. And because of the high threat posed by urban operations, we may see more autonomous systems on the ground and in the air to reduce human combatants. So they're going to fight with robots.
Oh, well, that's possibly actually exciting, but
Fourth, we can't
Dangerous.
visualize this as a single massive battle. It's a lot of little battles and different combats in streets and rubble and tunnels and towers, et cetera, et cetera. And fifth, this lack of control combined with limited visibility and the brutalization of soldiers that occurs in this kind of combat means that potential for war crimes is significantly increased than any fight for Kiev, and that's over and above the war crimes that already happened. One of the significant things is yesterday, Joe Biden referring to Putin as a war criminal.
Oh, yes.
Which he knows he is, which is one of the reasons why he fears getting poisoned.
Yeah.
6, both sides will need to fight in combined arms teams that are well-led and logistically supported, and that means tanks accompanied by infantry, logistics, repair, recovery assets, and many, many combat engineers, and if they're smart, and there hasn't been a lot of evidence for that on the Russian side, lots and lots of armored bulldozers. Right?
Oh, all right.
They're not kill-dozers, they're survive-dozers.
I see.
Finally, air power and air defense are important. Currently, the Ukrainians are holding their own in the air fight for the Russians. I don't think the head of the Russian army is going to be sending a Christmas card to the Russian Air Force this year. A lot of Russian downed planes yesterday.
All right.
However, this remains a hypothetical for now. There have been many predictions of imminent Russian assaults against the capital, but as Dan Lamont notes in his latest Pentagon update, the Russians remain bogged down in Kiev's eastern and northwestern approaches.
Okay.
Ukraine is still in control of Brovary, a town to Kiev's east where fierce fighting has occurred. What are Russia's chances of a successful seizure of Kiev? My assessment, low. This is the retired major general who makes this, this is what he does for a living. Urban operations are much more complex to plan and execute than other conventional operations, and the Russians have not shown high competence in their normal ops. The rough rule for urban attacks is about 3 to 5 attackers for each defender, and given the number of Ukrainian defenders and the complexity of the defenses, the Russians will need tens of thousands of soldiers to attempt an attack into Kiev. Tens of thousands. Which they don't have, because like 10% of their people are casualties. Right?
Yeah.
And in the information battle, an assault on Kiev will only see things get worse for the Russians. The world will focus on Kiev as a decisive fight of the war, and most of the world will be seeking and supporting Ukrainian victory. So, any Russian attack on Kiev will be very costly, especially infantry, armored commanders. They've already lost a number of commanders and civilians, and it'll also be enormously destructive with a huge post-war financial impact. So the economic costs of the battle for Kiev will be extraordinarily high. And if the Russians were to attack Kiev, not just missile attacks, it'll be a drawn-out battle that'll last weeks, possibly months. And given the military disaster this campaign has already been, things could get much worse for them in Kiev. That's his military assessment of what's going on there.
All right. I'll accept it. I have no choice now. It's done.
Right. So right. We've been getting the impression the Russians aren't doing very well. And that's because the Russians aren't doing very well. Yes, they're doing incredible amounts of damage, not to minimize that. Heartbreaking, heart-wrenching damage. Some of it irreversible. Human life is irreversible. A lot of it war crimes. And you can't do anything about it now, although there's stuff you could do later maybe. And you can do stuff in absentia. And yes, Putin's in trouble. And no, the Russians aren't unstoppable, inevitable, and inexorable. In fact, their weaknesses have been exposed in a big way, which has diminished Russia in so many ways. And, probably a bad move to try to invade Ukraine.
Yeah, well, in the end, I suppose so. And now my theory on why so many generals are being lost, I think that they're afraid to go back. They just figure they'll be purged, jailed, or murdered anyway, so they figured, might as well. I mean, they've probably been resigned to combat death all their lives, and now just say, I might as well have it here, rather than go back and be, dismissed in disgrace or something, or poisoned, even worse. So I wonder whether that has anything to do with it. That plus, they're not doing very well, and they're getting killed because Ukrainians are killing everybody. Ugh. Well, it's a mess and horrific, and another day of
right. And it's important to emphasize that. I mean, this is not, oh, great, look at this wonderful news out of Ukraine about how well we're doing. It's terrible.
We're not doing it, but yeah, it's right.
It's awful. What's happening there is horrible. It's horrific.
And it may still end.
But it's happening, and so these are the likely outcomes.
All right. Well, there it is.
Or as Herman Kahn used to write about nuclear war, thinking the unthinkable.
It's
well, the unthinkable is happening, so if you're going to cover it, let's go and look and see what's actually happening, even though I would prefer to avert my eyes.
Yeah, all right. Well, I don't know. There's a lot of people actually hungry for information about exactly how bad it is. It's an interesting
and
opportunity for new media to do
what did HBOs used to call them? The fighting keyboardists are all into war and look at this and look at that. But, this is real stuff with real people.
They don't really like to look at the pictures of what's actually happening. They like to display some sort of esoteric tactical knowledge. Well, they can't move into there because the M6952 doesn't work. And all right, whatever.
And finally, to summarize and bring us up to the break, which is coming in just a minute or so.
Yes.
Let's summarize some of the worst reporting out of Washington, which is Ashley Parker from the Washington Post, who tweets, Biden, wearing a suit, subdued, age 79, found himself for one of the first times since Russia invaded Ukraine clearly in response mode to Zelensky, clad in military green, resolute, age 44. My latest from today's Biden-Zelensky dueling speeches. So she covers this, as somebody pointed out, like she's a goddamn theater critic.
Yeah. Well, what are you wearing? Okay.
How old are you? Which of the fighting, Ukrainian brothers are you? The tall one or the older one?
I get the idea of the contrast, perhaps, in the imagery, but so they're different. I don't know.
This is what happens when shallow reporting catches up to profound events.
I guess. I don't know how else to explain it.
Hillary Clinton had a debate with Donald Trump. Hillary was wearing.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, but they did do that.
What she was wearing. What did she say?
Right. I don't know. That's odd. I have nothing good to say about it. No excuses for it. I don't know if it's whatever. I'll just read something else, I guess.
As somebody said, trivializes the non-trivial.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I did see a lot of complaints.
That's our Washington Press. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Sup, fam? It's your boy Darwin, a.k.a. Darwin_Darko, a.k.a. the most reasonable man in America, a.k.a. KITM's senior black correspondent. You might remember me from such recordings as Spacemen vs. Space Cadets and We Need to Talk About Joe Biden. Today, I want to bring you good news about that thing you've been struggling with. Do you suffer from giving too much of a damn? Do you turn on the series of tubes and find yourself outraged at the particular way some news organization strung some sentences together only to realize, nope, this is not some fictional hellscape? Well, guess what? You no longer have to accept the life of giving too much of a damn. You can do something about it, because even you, yes you, can be a show contributor. Now I know what you're thinking. Hey, Mr. Most Reasonable Man in America, I'm not some professional podcast talking guy. Don't worry about it. Do you have a smartphone or some other electronic recording device? Well, that's all you need. You too can have a segment where you can read us an important article and give us your take. Read one of your own original essays, or even just give us your commentary on something you'd like to share that's important to you. Fair warning though, side effects may include general punditry, having opinions and hot takes, getting stuff off your chest, and hearing your own voice. If your recording lasts longer than 5 to 7 minutes, please consult kagrox@gmail.com. That's KAGROX@gmail.com.
Welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Greg Dworkin still with us with plenty more news, some of which is probably more substantive than the fashion report that we got.
Well, I don't know. Let's talk about the pandemic a little bit. You noted the other way, wastewater tracking is rising a bit. And that's for the BA2 variant, which is starting to wreak a bit of havoc in Europe. And, the experts are warning us that we're 2 to 3 weeks behind Europe typically. So you can expect a surge here. It may not be the big surge, but surge nonetheless. This is from Financial Times. It's behind a paywall, but I sent you a guest link so you can read it.
I just guessed that you did.
Britain's less cautious over COVID than at any point during pandemic. Relaxation comes as government advisors increasingly uneasy over rising infections and hospital admissions from Omicron BA2. Mm-hmm. So there's polling here showing that pandemic precautions are now at all-time lows, avoiding public transport, working remotely, avoiding large social gatherings. Less and less people are doing it. Avoiding
even the sophisticated British.
Large public events, avoiding indoor mixing with other households.
Right.
Things like that.
How are they doing below stairs? They don't really still
upstairs,
have that.
downstairs kind of thing?
Yeah. No,
Or do you mean Harry
that.
Potter under the staircase thing?
Yeah, we know how he's doing. Harry Potter will just magic COVID away. Well, why isn't that happening?
Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry, Britain, but look, we're going to be in
Vaccinolorum,
I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Changes in mask-wearing
4 times.
behavior, frequency of testing, and overall cautiousness are as much about people responding to the large Omicron wave ending, and the fact that circulating variants are much less dangerous as it is about changes in the law, said Nick Davies, an epidemiological modeler at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. He said the way the timeline of relaxation had lined up with BA2 spread was driving the surge.
Okay.
Right? Every time I read that,
sense.
London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, I always think, that's probably a nice warm place to be in winter.
Yeah, but it's still in London.
Yeah, but it's tropical. As of March
Inside.
15th, 14,078 COVID patients were in UK hospitals, and the figure was rising in all regions, apart from Northern Ireland. English hospitals have recorded a 31% rise in COVID patients in the last fortnight. By March 5th, Omicron BA2 accounted for more than 3/5 of all COVID infections in England and Scotland, while in Northern Ireland, the Omicron
3/5.
offshoot made up nearly 4/5 of cases.
That's another fifth.
Adam Kucharski, an epidemiologist, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, staying warm for the winter, said the surging across the UK was by no means unique. It's striking the consistency in all the rises in Europe, adding that an obvious candidate for the simultaneous surges was BA2, which is 30% more transmissible than the original Omicron. And again, a reminder, as we talked yesterday, just because it's less severe than Delta, it's more transmissible. That means more cases, so it does more damage, more harm. And the idea that it's somehow less serious, not true for a uninfected, unvaccinated population, see Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So it's unlikely we get into territory where there's enormous pressure. Instead, we'll see a prolonged plateau in a number of countries. That plateau might end up being higher than a lot of countries would like. And that's probably what we're looking at here. Not a spike, but a plateau.
All right.
Right. But experts warn that England may be in a worse place than other UK nations and its European peers to respond because they've ended legally enforced self-isolation and stopping free mass testing as part of the government's living with COVID plan. In other words, Boris Johnson uniquely has made things worse, is what they're trying to say in a very nice way.
Well, look at him. How could you believe he wasn't going to do that?
Health authorities should also be, quote, open-minded, unquote, about widening the fourth dose campaign to other older groups.
Okay.
If your strategy is to rely almost entirely on vaccination, you should do as much as possible to vaccinate as widely as possible. There's a lot of criticism about the way Biden is approaching this now, basically saying, okay, we're done with it. Now it's your own personal responsibility. The one thing they should be doing is throwing a lot of money into let's get those people who haven't gotten boosted. But, of course, that's difficult to do because that Congress didn't give them the money to do anything.
Right.
So, you can criticize Biden all you want, and you should, but it's really Congress's fault. And I blame Republicans because,
all right, sure. Let's do
Republicans are really the reason we can't do anything and have nice things.
Yeah, I mean, because they're opposed to everything you try to do. Everything comes down to whatever margin you have in the majority. And if it were sensible and there were people who were really interested in fighting the disease, then you'd have a much wider margin for error. Instead, it's, whatever you want to do, sensible or otherwise, Democrats have to do it, which means you have 4 votes to play with. And, so it's fair game. I know it's the same thing every time the Democrat. Well, you should have voted with the Democrats. Yes, well, Republicans should have been sensible about something and said, yeah, even though we won't gain politically, fighting the virus is still a good idea for us and the world. But they don't do that. They won't start from that position. So it starts and ends with them. I think that's fair. You do too.
It's just a warning, if you will, that, things aren't done.
All right. Yes. Any indication will BA2 spike and recede as quickly as Omicron, or is that just like there's no way to know that?
No, a spike is it comes and then it goes. A plateau is it stays.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these charts here, I don't know what I'm looking at from this article. There's an up and a down to it, but that's the BA1. We don't know what happens yet with BA2.
Right.
Or
and
Northern Ireland
to say we don't know, I think is the fairest way to see what's going on here.
All right. Yeah, because the Northern Ireland chart, for some reason, their BA2 numbers, they've got a little more history with it, and it does sort of spike up to the height of BA1, and then it does plateau. It doesn't go down, but nobody else is on the downslope or even a plateau yet.
Yeah, so it's too early. It's too early to say.
All right, well, that's not good. Other waves have traditionally reached us. Well, the first couple waves reaches about 6 weeks post Europe. I don't know whether this one will travel faster because it's more contagious or not. The Omicron thing seemed to move a lot faster across the globe. So I don't know. I guess there's nothing to go on except what we've seen, and I don't know anything about the genetic structure of this virus, whether it'll act the same way or not, and even people who do know about it might not know how it'll act. So okay, get masks, hold on to them. If you were running low and thought you didn't need to order any more, you're wrong. Get some more.
Right. By the way, before we get into what happens in America with politics and the Republicans, I got to throw in this one piece here from a military analyst, Dmitry Grozobinski, who cites a paragraph, but I don't know where the paragraph is from.
Oh.
And the paragraph is, and I quote, worse. Gerasimov has designed a modern Russian army under Putin's leadership based on an active defense concept. This envisioned waging a fighting withdrawal that would bring an enemy deep into Russia to be destroyed, as was done against Napoleon and Hitler.
Yeah.
But they're waging an offensive war, not a defensive war. So built for different things.
They don't teach that at...
Keep reading paragraphs like this, says Dmitry, and remain baffled by who Russian military planners imagined they'd be fighting a slow grinding retreat in the face of. Nuclear deterrence aside, neither NATO nor China are remotely equipped to attempt anything like a land invasion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So who are they preparing for?
I don't... Well, nobody. I guess not this.
The answer is Napoleon. I'm pretty confident the Russian army could win a battle, a long defensive action against Napoleon.
Right.
But I'm not sure they're built for the 21st century.
Or going in the other direction. Like, okay, I mean, that's just a totally different kind of a thing. But yeah. All right. Well, Napoleon lost because he traveled on his stomach.
All right. As a Ukrainian farmer would say, I'll give you a toe, but only to the Russian border.
Now that... at least was, weaponry heading into Russian territory. They knew what to do for that.
Yeah,
but it was their own weaponry.
You know how to go backwards.
I don't see how you... Well, okay. I mean...
Anyway, interesting observation. So back to the pandemic. This is Eric Topol writing in The Guardian.
Ah, okay.
Which is free. You don't need a guest link for this. Once again, America is in denial about signs of a fresh COVID wave. In the past couple of weeks, UK, Germany, France, and others are experiencing a new wave. The U.S. should get ready. When it comes to COVID, the U.S. specializes in denialism.
Oh, yeah.
Deny the human-to-human transmission when China's first cases, deny that it's airborne, deny the need for boosters. There are many more examples, but now one stands out learning from other countries. In early 2020, with the major outbreak in the Lombardy region of Italy that rapidly and profoundly outstripped hospital resources and medical staffing, Americans expressed confidence it won't happen here, that it couldn't happen here. And then it did happen here.
15 cases, down to 0.
Fast forward 2 years of the pandemic, the UK and Europe have provided 5 unmistakable warnings to America that a new surge was occurring. Within weeks each time, the U.S. experienced a new wave, some not as severe as with Alpha, some worse like in Delta and Omicron. And from this COVID track record over 2 years, it's palpable what happens in the UK and Europe doesn't stay in the UK and Europe, or Las Vegas for that matter. In the past couple of weeks, the UK and several countries in Europe, including Germany, France, and Switzerland, are all experiencing a new wave. This is the 6th warning from the UK and Europe to the US. You'd think we'd get it by now, but no.
Yeah. Well, we're playing T-ball here. You just keep swinging until you hit it, kid.
So wastewater surveillance is relatively sparse in the U.S., but 15% of the 410 sites where it's conducted between 24 February to 10 March showed a greater than 1,000% increase. Also, the BA2 variant is gaining steam, more than 30% of new cases across the U.S. The root cause for the new wave, hard to pin down. BA variant is known to have increased transmission, and with the concomitant reduction of mitigation restrictions and the waning immunity protection of vaccines, which is why Pfizer is saying you might need a fourth dose, the transmission advantage for BA2 will increase. And so that triad is hard to dissect, which is important because they're all interdependent. And rather than focusing on what precisely is driving the new wave, the imperative is to do some preventative action. But as with the first 5 warnings from the UK and the UK and Europe, US didn't take heed. Instead of proactively gearing up with non-pharmaceutical interventions like masks, better quality, distancing, air filtration, ventilation, aggressive testing, it just reacted to the surges when they were manifest. So you know what happens. We get a new surge and the schools close down for deep cleaning. That's the U.S. response. Indeed, the people who need protection the most, besides those who are immunocompromised, are the 65-plus group. Hey, that's me. The U.S. has a booster rate of 65% in this age group, and the U.K. and many European and Asian countries exceed 90%, except in Hong Kong, where it's terrible for over 80s. This is a critical issue because it's a substantial drop down of protection, from 90 to 95% with a third shot to 70 to 80% without a booster versus Omicron hospitalization and death. So, in other words, the protection wanes over time. And the problem of lack of adequate vaccination in the U.S. is compounded by not having any plan for a fourth dose. The Israeli study of over 1 million people aged 60 and over showed a 4.3-fold enhanced protection versus severe illness from Omicron compared to those receiving 3 shots. So Pfizer is starting to ask for it, but we haven't seen a whole lot done. And again, the money's been taken away from Biden by Congress because Congress is just like brilliant and knows everything.
Yes. Interesting that the money's been taken away because there was a big fight over don't take our money away, and now our money.
The states need it. We need to use it the way we used cigarette money, right? We'll lower taxes with it.
A lot of and deep clean.
And deep clean. Yeah.
Well, now we got nothing, and well, anyway, that's what I was talking about. Is that we seem to just follow Europe every time there's a surge, we get it, and it's a couple of weeks, and I guess the calendar has compressed a little bit since the very beginning. It's just faster moving, which I guess we can hope that also means that the downside of the spike is also quickly again too. But eventually they'll come up with one that's no, everybody gets it, spreads like measles and never goes away. Oh, great. Well,
so
we'll find out if
let's just do a tiny little bit of domestic politics here.
All right.
Per the new Economist YouGov poll, says Jeff Garin, pollster, U.S. voters sympathize with Ukraine over Russia by 79-3.
It's close.
It's a close
virtual dead heat.
Yeah, a statistical dead heat, as Wolf Blitzer might say. 12% side with neither and 6% not sure. This is an important reminder, says Jeff Garin, of just how far out on the fringe Fox News commenters like Tucker Carlson and Lara Logan are.
Yes. Tucker,
right? If you want to take Putin's side and explain away Putin, you're not on the side of Americans. And this has practical consequences.
Good.
Okay, this is Josh Kraushaar, conservative, writing in National Journal.
Oh, dear.
But a free article. Trump staring at resounding rejection in GOP primaries. The former president's endorsed candidates are struggling to capitalize on his support. If he goes over 3 in May, it would suggest his peak influence has passed. And who are those 3? North Carolina, Pat McCrory.
His endorsements.
Where he has weathered millions in outside attacks from the Trump-allied Club for Growth. The Club for Growth is just awful.
Where are
they? Were awful, but like they're Trumpy awful now.
And they were
leads Trump endorsed Ted Budd in several publicly released polls. Who was
awful, but not.
Who was the Club for Growth guy who's now senator? Is that Pat Toomey?
Yeah, right. And then
Club for Growth used to be Pat Toomey style Republicanism. Now it's Trump Republicanism. It got even worse after he left.
Right. I don't understand how that could. Well, people are weird. All right. Good. I hope he goes over 3. I see he's in other endorsement problems. He has.
Georgia Governor Brian Kemp now leads David Perdue by double digits. Mm-hmm. David Perdue is also awful and has nothing. Nothing. And Trump endorsed Mo Brooks has underperformed so badly in Alabama that the former president is reportedly considering endorsing somebody else.
Yeah, that's funny. And how he talks about his...
He led the insurrection.
My predictions are always great, but if I'm losing, then I switch my endorsement. But yeah, he
That's
was...
Trump, but in terms of Mo Brooks was out in front with a flak jacket on January 6th, and that wasn't good enough.
Right. Also news that... by the way, in case you were wondering, he's considering maybe running with a different running mate. Maybe Mike Pence, the guy I told everybody to hang, won't be my VP. And that too.
Because he's not loyal enough, right? But also, Pence is anti-Russian. Not anti-Kremlin, anti-Putin, not anti-Russian people. Although who knows with those guys. Adding insult to injury, Kraushauer writes, and this is where this all ties together. Trump's past praise of Russian President Vladimir Putin is now proving to be a major vulnerability for MAGA-aligned candidates at the worst possible time. By a nearly 2-to-1 margin, Republicans rejected the isolationist notion that the war in Ukraine is none of our business in a recent Reuters Ipsos poll. But Trump touted the Russian dictator's strategic savvy at a recent fundraising event on the eve of Russia's invasion with many of his endorsed candidates in attendance.
And clapping.
Right? So McCrory, after being hit as a Republican in name only candidate in pro-Bud ads, went up with his own ad attacking Bud for being soft on Russia.
Okay.
So McCrory's resilience in the North Carolina Senate race is an example of the limited impact of Trump's endorsement. Despite Trump's endorsement of Bud and barrage of uncontested anti-McCrory ads, even a Bud internal poll showed the congressman trailing 31-25.
Okay.
Right. So the point is, if Trump can't be a kingmaker, then, who cares about Trump? Nobody likes him. Nobody ever liked him. They were just afraid of him. But you can't be afraid of somebody who loses.
You shouldn't be. Hopefully that catches on. It'll be great to see all his candidates trounced. And although I'd like to, I don't know whether I'd rather see them win their primaries and then get trounced in the general. That would be better. But it's a hair-raising experience waiting through the general. But yeah, he could.
But the theme is, the Republican Party is ripe for a split. So go ahead, make it happen.
Yeah, and I guess it only gets worse when he endorses 5 candidates in the same race. They'll fight amongst themselves as well.
Right.
All right, maybe they'll all get trapped in convoys and not be able to make it to the polls.
Right. Well, we'll see. Again, Democrats have to appreciate that old people are on Facebook, and Facebook is how you juice up their get out the vote. Yes. And it works for Republicans, and Democrats still don't catch on.
True.
So Republicans aren't smart about everything. Here's Rick Scott being smart about nothing. Paul Waldman, no relation, says, hearing this NPR interview with Rick Scott, I'm beginning to suspect he's not smart. Asked to defend his plan to make low earners pay income taxes in addition to payroll taxes, he said people are getting government benefits and not working. So these people who are not working should pay income taxes on the earnings they're not making. See if you're clever enough to spot the logical problem here.
Yeah, it's a mathematical issue. I have nothing to...
It's just logistics.
Yeah.
We're talking about the emotional impact here.
It's the work of
lazy
not working
people
that
shouldn't
like
benefit from your hard work, Republicans.
Right.
That's all I'm saying here. Why are you trying to ask me about specifics?
Well, there's a lot of weird denial going around, and a lot of people getting themselves on tape or filming documentaries about themselves and getting themselves in trouble. Lieutenant Governor of Idaho was out there being weird on tape the other day, too. I can't recall offhand now what that was about. But had an awful time trying to defend her position with a reporter who actually had questions. Did you happen to catch that tape? What was that about?
A little bit.
Now I've forgotten because there's so many weirdos doing dumb things. I mix them all up.
Yes. You're trying to ask me questions about things I said, and I'm not having any of that.
Yeah, right. Why are you trying to...
That's the part about it I remember.
Was
what the issue was isn't really all that important.
Yeah, I
it's that, wait a minute, you're asking me about things I said? How dare you? You're just trying to change the topic.
Yeah.
No, I'm a reporter, and you said these things, and I'm asking about them. Well, I'm not going to play this game, so she walked out of the studio.
Yeah, it was, they were in a hallway, so I think she took the microphone they gave her, a clip-on thing, and handed it back and walked away. And said, "This is over." So I'll find it. I think I retweeted it, but we'll get it. There it is. But there's no description of. Oh, yes, right. She went to the Nick Fuentes event.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
what it was.
right.
I don't know who he is.
I don't know
I've
Nick
never heard
Fuentes.
of him.
Why am I supposed to know Nick Fuentes? You expect me to look up everybody? Well, but you had no idea what the event was about? Well, now you're just trying to get gotcha questions.
Right. Right. Oh, there was a good moment there where he says you didn't even Google him just to look up who he is. I didn't say that. Oh, well, then you did look it up? Well, I didn't say that either. Why are you trying to say I said things? This
interview's over.
Yeah. That was the lieutenant governor who twice tried to issue executive orders when the governor went out of state. You remember? They had that problem a couple of months ago. The current Republican governor traveling out of state, and she started mobilizing the National Guard to send them to the southern border and erased the mask mandates. And the governor came back and said, "That's only pretend stuff. You're in charge. If somebody invades Idaho, you should do something. But otherwise, you're just supposed to sit on your hands and make sure fires get put out until I get home." And then she did it again. What was her name? It's spelled, here it is, McGeechan, but I think that it's pronounced differently. Joan told me. Might be, but I don't remember what it is. Anyway, she's crazy. Stay away from her.
Well, I know it's not pronounced Tisach.
Right. It's not that.
It's not that.
McGeehan, maybe something like that. Ugh.
Yeah.
Well, memory fading. I needed a booster, I guess. All right. Well, thank you, Greg. That's unless there's anything else that has cropped up, I think you were saying you might have to might tap out at this point.
No, not much.
Okay.
Just a reminder that if you're really trying to figure out who the actual sincere players are in the news reporting business, just watch who's making excuses for Putin and Russia now.
It's
a real good way to figure out which side are you on.
Yeah, with 73% favoring Ukrainians, you really got to be going out of your way to make this mistake, and it's a pretty good indication that there's a real motivator behind it, and with Russians, that's usually money.
Just in, American basketball star Brittany Griner's detention in Russia has been extended until May 19th, Russian state news agency TASS reports.
Yeah, all right. I'm just holding on to her as leverage, but they haven't asked for anything from us. But I mean, I think they are just well, you know what we want. We want you to be on our side.
Right.
So, okay, I hope they don't threaten her any further, but just holding her is bad
final
enough.
piece here, just a commentary. Julia Ioffe, who covers Russian stuff.
Yes.
I think she was born in Ukraine, if I'm not mistaken. She was born in Russia. I don't know where. But a very sharp analyst. Every time I'm asked by Americans, do Russians really believe this stuff, as if we don't have the same thing happening here. 40% of the American population was convinced in just 1 year that Donald Trump actually won the 2020 election.
Yes,
so
that's
they believe
the least
it.
Crazy thing that they believe now. Yeah, that's true. Good point. We are certainly as susceptible as anyone to propaganda. That reminds me, the truck convoy thing is apparently still going on. I think they're getting the right level of coverage, but they finally started, actually actively trying to block beltway traffic, parking trucks on bridges. But it did. Still, I think they could cause more trouble than they did. So they're still holding back at some point. But every time they interview somebody about what they're after, they say crazier and crazier things. And, at some point, don't they just say, there's maybe possibly escaped mental patients blocking the bridges. What should we do with that? As opposed to political protest. There's a fine line there, and they're getting very close to getting themselves in trouble with it.
Anyway, that's the story.
Okay.
See you Monday. I bet stuff happens between now and then. I'm throwing in this British libel story for you just because it's a little different and semi-entertaining maybe.
Always different.
But their laws are different than ours. It's easier to sue for libel there. And this is an article about how the UK to clamp down on libel lawfare.
No.
Libel
all right.
lawfare.
They're
libel
just tired of it.
By the rich in English courts. Claimants will have to prove malice as government seeks to curb slaps. That's SLAPPS, which you can explain, because I won't, that use wealth to deter scrutiny.
Yeah.
Take that, Prince Andrew. So see you later, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Okay, very good. May your basketball picks go well. It's sort of an Irish basketball blessing for you. It starts out with May, you, or something. All right. This is interesting. Anti-slapples. You all recall that is what? Strategic lawsuits against, whether it's public participation or something like that. And we last heard about it in the context of Trump's claim that the anti-slap statutes in New York precluded Jean Carroll's, I throw the E in there because that makes you sound smart when you have that first initial, Jean Carroll's lawsuit against Trump, a defamation suit. I guess we're beyond the statute of limitations for her to either press charges or sue directly on the question of his rape or his sexual assault of her all those years ago, but she's suing for the defamation that happened when she, I guess, made her claims, and Trump said, I didn't do that, and then goes on to insult her. I wouldn't have because she's not my type. And then worse than that. And then, so she filed her lawsuit, and Trump had sought to dismiss it based on the slap statutes. I think it was only a couple of days ago, so we all basically remember that. But if you're wealthy enough and you can pay your attorney's fees and it doesn't worry you to do that, you can sue people to try to silence them from trying to make legitimate claims, or I guess illegitimate claims too, against you. And the judge wasn't buying it and knocked it down, and indeed went ahead and said, yeah, this is actually this is a slap suit against somebody else's slap suit. It didn't take long for the lawyers to turn anti-slap legislation on its head and try to claim that what it really means is that we can file slap suits against people who think they're protected by the anti-slap suit law. Well, we'll see how that manifests itself in Britain, but apparently they're thinking of implementing something like that. I would think that the British tabloids would be lobbying heavily against that because they get all their juiciest stuff in the lawsuits that people file over the stories they sell to these tabloids, and then the retaliatory stories sold to other tabloids. It's big business. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Much to scoop up today. Let's see. Where do I want to start? Oh, I don't know. I'm going to have to click on some of these things and see what the hell they're about first. Oh, yes. This one getting attention quickly, building some momentum from off of a Seattle Times piece, I guess. Our Twitter friend RVA Wonk picking up on it first as far as I saw in my timeline on Twitter. But, Twitter's doing funky things with timelines these days. So, I don't know. Time has no meaning on Twitter. And then I saw Josh Marshall picking up on it as well. Now everybody's talking about a weird story that... Well, let's see. I'll pick up with Caroline's version of it, her commentary. And that's RVA Wonk. Former Washington State Representative Matt Shea, a far-right Republican who was found to have planned and participated in domestic terrorism, is trying to facilitate the adoption in the U.S. of 60-plus Ukrainian children. This seems wildly inappropriate, exploitative, and illegal. It's the sort of thing that, if you're not careful, will lead people to say, oh my God, I think he's just actually a pervy old man, maybe trafficking these children. But of course, you would have to wait for proof before you made such an accusation. But if I read things correctly, long story short is he's using the Ukraine-Russian crisis to show up and is scouring the country for kids who either are orphaned, their parents having been killed in the invasion or whatever, or are ostensibly orphans, or just don't have any parental accompaniment, and might be orphans, might not be, but there's just nobody there to speak up for them. And I'm a good Christian from the United States, and I'm here just to help kids get settled and help relieve their problems because, gosh, it's tough here in Ukraine, and it is. But apparently he's not all that interested in whether or not the parents are actually dead, or whether or not there are other relatives that are willing to take them in, or whether they're just kids that parents put on a train to move them to safety, and parents aren't dead. There's nothing of the sort. It's just they're in transit to other relatives somewhere else. And he wants to scoop them up, and I guess the big problem arises when local authorities are like, now hold on a second, this isn't like the Wild West or anything. We are under attack, but there's still, this is a European country, and we have a system and everything of child welfare. And I guess some countries with even less infrastructure might not have that. You might be able to get away with this stuff elsewhere, but not here. Who are you, and what are your plans for these kids? Like, do you have places to take care of them? Do you have people lined up to adopt them? Just, basic questions, to which he's answering, none of your business, which, then makes people, I don't know. Sometimes that works anyway, but apparently they have the internet in Ukraine, and they can look the guy up, and they say, oh, you're actually like, sort of persona non grata in your own country because you're one of those weirdos. And I've, by the way, read a lot about the Republicans like you who keep getting picked up for, child sex trafficking and other fun things like that. And maybe that's what's happening here. Well, let me see. So Caroline, I think, is probably thinking along those lines, but I don't want to put words in her mouth. She's got her own words. I'll read her thread, and then maybe we'll read what Josh Marshall has to say about it. And then, if we haven't had enough of this thing, we'll actually read what the Seattle Times has to say about all this. These kids are coming from a place that has been a war zone for 3 weeks. How many of them are just temporarily separated from their family and or have parents who were killed but could be cared for by other relatives in Ukraine? You can't just steal them away from their families. That's the thing. The Seattle Times article, they don't want to get themselves in trouble. Oh, they won't let me read it because I have an ad blocker. How interesting is that? I wasn't thinking about that. We'll see whether we can foil that at some point. But at any rate, that might answer our question about how much time we spend reading the stuff. But can I at least get the headline of there? Former Washington Representative Matt Shea, accused of domestic terrorism, working to secure adoptions for Ukrainian children in Poland. Okay, so it's Poland where he's running around. They still have their government intact, and I guess so they're actually checking on him rather than just handing him the kids, which is probably wise. Again, Carolyn Orr writing, when asked by a local mayor's office in Poland what he was doing with the children, and it's funny because that's, it used to be that, well, why would you ask questions? He's arranging for their adoptions. Well, now they're savvy to that and says, so what are you doing with the children? Shea told him it was none of their business, but it kind of is. Although, I guess technically you could say, well, what business is it of the mayor of a town in Poland what happens to these Ukrainian kids? And the business is, I've heard some of you American Republicans are weird and pervy, so it's not, maybe technically my business, but as long as I can make trouble for you, I am going to ask these questions. So I'm glad he's standing up for the kids here. When asked by the local mayor's office, Shea says, none of your business. He also tried to avoid giving them his last name. I think that's a red flag. So what's your name, sir? Joe. Yeah, all right. I don't think this is going to work, sir. Probably to avoid being exposed as a domestic terrorist. That's a good reason. Here's an actual clip from the text here. International agencies say with the chaos and confusion of war, now is not an appropriate time for international adoptions from Ukraine. And Shea's presence and the lack of information surrounding the American group he's with has raised concerns among some residents of, oh boy, we're in Poland again, Kazimierz Dolny, maybe. I've destroyed it, I'm sure. A small Polish town where the children are staying at a hotel guest house. I asked him many times, what are you going to do with these children? Like, you might be eating them, anything. I don't know. What are you going to do with these children? And he told me it's not my business. Veronica, which I mentioned is like Veronica. It's spelled with a W, but I think they still will say Veronica Ziarnica. I'm sorry. An aide to the mayor of this freaking town said of Shea, I got the feeling in my gut that something's wrong with this guy. He didn't want to tell me his last name. That's better than a gut feeling. That's just pure red flag. When the mayor's office found out his last name and grew concerned, again, likely because they found out he's a domestic terrorist. Is this the guy that was expelled from the Washington state legislature for opening the doors the day they were having their state-level insurrection, which I guess was January 6th? I think so. Shea reportedly accused the mayor's aide of being anti-American, anti-Protestant. There's a lot of that, I'm sure, right? And a Russian troll. Okay. When this aide, Ziarnica, eventually found out Shea's last name from some of the local volunteers, she Googled him and grew more concerned reading about his past. She said Shea accused her of being all these things. I don't know what's going to happen next, but things are getting really ugly, she said. On a Polish TV show, Shea said he was working with a Texas-based group called Loving Families and Homes for Orphans, which has a non-functional website and is not registered with state or federal adoption agencies. That's another flag. The State Department, the National Council for Adoption, the UN High Commission on Refugees, and UNICEF all said this isn't an appropriate time to be considering adoption from Ukraine because it's not possible right now to determine if these kids are truly eligible for adoption. In many circumstances, what Shea is trying to do would be referred to as child trafficking. Even if every single one of these kids are actually eligible for adoption, which is unlikely, Shea would not be allowed to go anywhere near them or have anything to do with the adoption process. According to Caroline, anyway. For background and context on Shea, by the way, he was found to have worked with far-right extremists to organize 3 armed conflicts of political violence against the United States, including Ammon Bundy's 6-week-long armed standoff at a wildlife refuge. The Malheur one, I guess, right? That's the one we all know. Let's see. In reference here is her own tweet from December of 2019. Big update. Washington Representative Matt Shea planned and participated in domestic terrorism against the U.S. An investigation is concluded. That's stemming from the Malheur Wildlife Refuge standoff. Some of Shea's communications with right-wing extremists were leaked a while back, revealing his support for white nationalism and endorsement of accelerationist ideas. He should not be anywhere near vulnerable, traumatized children. I should add here, there is almost certainly a connection to far-right Christianity / Christian nationalism / evangelicalism here. That's a broad umbrella. Likely via the adoption agency, in scare quotes. The church, or at least a twisted interpretation of it, is a huge part of what binds Russia and the far right in the U.S. Okay, that is an interesting thread of speculation. And it is just speculation at this point. But yeah, maybe I have him wrong. Maybe he's not the guy who got bounced from the legislature for opening the doors. That might be somebody else, because I would have thought she wouldn't have missed that, very likely, if that were the case. Josh Marshall has a thread on this too, and we might as well, he's also referring to the Seattle Times report. We'll just read everybody's commentary on the report instead. And, I'll show you their tweet threads. The links to the Seattle Times piece is there. You can read the whole thing for yourself. He starts out this way. State rep who wrote a plan to organize a mass killing of liberals. Okay, I missed that one from before. To found a Christian theocracy in America just showed up in Poland with dozens of Ukrainian children he wants to bring to America for adoption. And to get myself in trouble with the old trope about Polish jokes again, how many Polish officials does it take to spot an American pervert trying to traffic in children? One. They're quite adept at it. And our American perverts make it very obvious, I guess. And I would counsel them to work on that, but I don't actually want to improve the odds. So keep looking creepy and weird. And it's working for you. It's got you in the newspapers. You probably think you're a great success. You're in the newspapers and on TV. So no fooling the Polish on this one. They are on the ball. All right. Let's see. Second tweet in Josh Marshall's thread is that screen grab about the what are you going to do with these children? That's none of my business, he said. Piece. That. I think that would set anybody off. In case you're wondering, Josh says, here's our story from 2018 on Ncaa, back when he is in the genocide of liberals business full time. And he's not wearing his smart person glasses like he is currently. So his eyesight was much better then, I guess. A Talking Points memo piece from, when did he say? 2018. State reps' outline for killing non-believers in holy war is referred to the FBI, and properly so. Are you curious about it? It's a 4-page document titled Biblical Basis for War, and goes point by point over how a Christian theocratic movement could and should exterminate its opposition in a battle to win a hypothetical holy war. Again, like Wendy Rogers and her Bill DeGallows thing, perfectly timed for Purim, which is also today, by the way. I don't know when was the last time that the start of Purim coincided with St. Patrick's Day? I don't know, but it makes for fun possibilities. A little green food coloring in your Hamantaschen dough could really make for some spectacular treats. Anyway, Josh Marshall continues. You knew I had to get to the green Hamantaschen eventually. Josh Marshall, right? You see the connection? I don't. There's nothing there. As a State Department spokesperson, I guess this is supposed to say, said, it's not uncommon in dangerous situations for parents to send their children out of the area for safety reasons, or for families to become separated during an emergency. Even when a child's parents have died, children are often cared for by other relatives. Also, many children living in orphanages in Ukraine are not orphans. The group that has possession of the children in Poland says it's all good. We are in direct contact with the governments of Ukraine and the United States, supported by the highest levels of politicians, international and local church leaders, as well as dozens of companies from Ukraine, the USA, and Poland. It's not clear why companies are relevant unless that's who they're going to sell the children to. That's Josh talking. Interesting. I wasn't sure what this quote meant. The group that's in possession of the children. Like, I thought that the Polish authorities had protected them from falling into the possession of people who would traffic them. And so I thought they were saying, we're in direct contact with all these governments and highest levels of politicians and church leaders and companies or whatever, and we're not going to give these kids to Matt Shea and his weird American pervert brigade. And I don't know. I guess they are. I thought maybe companies could be relevant, like they're donating stuff, to keep the kids fed and clothed or something. But, okay. It's not clear why companies are relevant unless that's who they're going to sell the children to. Gosh, Josh. Tweet number 8 here. Here are the articles of incorporation of the nonprofit which has possession of the kids or who Shea is working with. It was set up on February 14th, filed with the state of Florida on February 15th. Okay, which he notes, by the way, is his birthday, but it has nothing to do with it. Electronic articles of incorporation for Loving Families and Homes for Orphans Incorporated. So, yeah, dating back to the olden days of about a month ago. All right, incorporated in Florida, not where Matt Shea is from, but okay. There's another note here. He says, let's take a look at this, Article 3. The specific purpose for which this corporation is organized is to provide loving and caring homes and families for the orphans from other countries for a short time period. So, okay, I mean, what does that even mean? I don't know. Josh goes on here. 2 of the 3 women listed as directors of the organization are from Florida. The third, Vera Savin Ruppel, Ruppel, however, is from Spokane, Washington, which is where Matt Shea is from and near his former district. He is now the pastor of a church in Spokane, so likely there's some connection. Okay, he then says, I think I've found what is, at least for now, the definitive source on this story. So where did this all come from? It's in a publication I was not familiar with, Range Media, which is available on Twitter. They have an account, Range Media 4, number 4, for all, which covers the, what does this mean? Well, I think this looks like a typo and an autocorrect that he didn't mean, but covers the Pacific Northwest or something like that. Anyway, the Northwest seems to be a small digital native outlet. They published this story by Luke Baumgarten, and it's got a ton of information on this. So, okay, an alternative source on this one from Range Media. I'm curious, I'll open it up and see how lengthy a piece it is. So I guess does that mean that they were out first with this story and then the Seattle Times picked it up? Okay, that's fine. It's moving into more mainstream circles. So definitely read that article, Josh advises. But the gist, thank you, seems to be that this whole effort grows out of the Ukrainian-American immigrant community in Spokane. That's a little more legitimate sounding versus random, like, there's kids that we could snap up. Let's go get them. And Shea is married to a Ukrainian woman. But the whole effort also seems connected to a Polish far-right extremist who's a pal of Shea's. There's more about him in this part of the Range article. Being a hardcore anti-Catholic is sort of a new twist on being an extremist in Poland. But there you go. Note the links to U.S. far-right elements, and it would seem funding. And he's got a screen grab here with some underlining. The pastor and his flocks. Okay, he's saving us the trouble of reading all the way through the Range piece, and this is the hot stuff here. Besides Shea, the 2 major players in the story are, oh boy, Pavel Choyecki and Irina Sipko, and their personas couldn't be more different. Chojecki, Chojecki, his church, why am I trying on this? It translates to Church of the New Covenant. We'll just go with that. And his YouTube channel, which translates to Go Against the Tide, have been under scrutiny in Poland for years by the Never Again Association, a Polish anti-racism, anti-xenophobia, and far-right watchdog group. According to Rafał Pankowski of Never Again, in addition to his pastorship and YouTube channel, Chojecki is a leader in the November 11th movement, or 11 November movement, a small far-right political party he co-founded with former Polish presidential candidate Marian Kowalski, a former leader of the fascist National Radical Kemp ONR. I don't know what happened on November 11th, but check it out somewhere, I guess. Pankowski uses quotation marks when referencing Chojecki's religious operation, but says it's well-funded and has difficult-to-document ties to the U.S. The church is a very small evangelical sect consisting of Chojecki, his family, and some followers. So, like a Westboro Baptist Church kind of situation. It is, however, very well funded, owns real estate, etc. Apparently, thanks to U.S. links. We don't know details of those links. The main form of their public activity is through many hours of daily broadcasts on YouTube. YouTube is very dangerous, apparently. Well, that's weird. In a report Never Again produced documenting xenophobia and sinophobia in Poland surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh boy. Koyeki's name comes up at least a dozen times on discrete dates throughout 2020. So apparently something of a conspiracy theorist on the COVID front as well. All right. I mean, wow, weird, and watch out. The pervs are on the loose again among the evangelical right. It's a shame. All right, other stories. Well, there are many, and I'm trying to decide on which ones we'll save for other days when we've got more time to read some of the long ones. Let's see, what else have we here? Yes, right, there's the Mo Brooks news, which I'll share with you too to back up what Greg was telling us about Trump abandoning him. Whew, gosh, there's an awful lot. All right, now we're getting back down to things that have been waiting in the wings for a while. Which ones of these can we rescue before the break? Oh, yes. Here's the, I should have shared this yesterday when I was talking about the Dana Milbank piece about, how can Ron DeSantis sleep at night given how he and other Republican governors and Republican-governed states, even when that's sometimes with a Democratic governor or whatever, but they have a very Trumpy legislature somehow, or, what was the fudge factor that we were talking about yesterday? Oh, yeah, sometimes when it's a Republican governor, they're actually doing okay because they're moderate Republicans. But you remember this whole thing. But I had mentioned something about a difference between individual life expectancy in the different states, and the story that we read didn't actually contain any backup for that. I knew I had something somewhere. I can share the tweet with you, and it has some of the sources. This tweet is from Ingrid Katz, who is an HIV researcher, apparently, among other things. A doctor, though, basically is what we're talking about. And she says, in reference to another tweet about a particular study, fascinating manuscript. And then a quote, increasingly, an individual's life expectancy in the U.S. will depend on the state in which they live. So there it is. That's the conclusion. Where does it come from? She's answering a tweet from Amy Maxman, PhD, science reporter for Nature, who writes, Florida's excess death rate. Remember when we were all supposed to look at the excess death rates because we were worried that maybe states like Florida were fudging the numbers that they were reporting in terms of their COVID-19 deaths to make themselves look more on top of the situation than they really were. Florida's excess death rate was 4 times higher than Massachusetts and 3 times higher than New York from August through December of 2021. I don't know exactly why that's the key time, but that's what the tweet says. Fascinating paper. It says here from the Journal of American Medical Association, right? JAMA, J-A-M-A, who you can find on Twitter as well, JAMA_current. Fascinating paper from JAMA on how life expectancy and health in some states is plummeting as state leaders adopt positions that are bad for health. What do you know? Can't believe it. And this chart that's here is weekly excess deaths rate per 100,000 in selected states in all of 2021. So I guess at the peak moment that they're talking about, August through December, is here as the big spike on this chart. And yeah, Florida's excess deaths number, very high. But Florida, Georgia, and Texas all with giant spikes in excess deaths. And I guess that's supposed to give us a better idea of how many people actually died from COVID, despite how they were hoping to report those deaths. So anyway, a link in here to the article, The Growing Influence of, we got to get this pop-up out of the way. The Growing Influence of State Governments on Population Health in the United States. Stephen H. Wolf with 2 O's, like woo, Wolf, Virginia Woolf. But no E. Did she have an E? A doctor himself. That's, of course, who would be publishing in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So a tamer headline, but apparently the quote drawn from here that increasingly life expectancy will depend on the state in which you live. So, anyway, for those of you who are more inclined to the academic writing, I would commend to you, therefore, this article from the Journal. And okay, that brings us right about up to break time. Not quite ready for the music yet, but let's see. Trying to decide what to do with our last segment. There are many options, a few shorter stories, one long story, things we've been sitting on for a long time, things currently breaking. Well, stay tuned. We'll surprise the hell out of you after this. Okay. And I'm going to try and figure out which of the choices that we have in front of us could we be making more fun of the former guy and how dopey he is. Should we finally get around to the story of Ginny Thomas and her implication in the January 6th events? Well, I don't know. You tell me. Well, I'll tell you if you don't tell me. Hi, it's me, David Waldman, the same guy who was just talking to you a second ago. Our Patreon subscription drive is still going strong, with over 175 monthly donors who help keep us on the air. If we've helped keep you going during the pandemic, why not return the favor and help us keep going so we can all be together for the next disaster? Patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it easy to make secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for keeping you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We literally could not do this without you. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. Let's see, a couple of things to catch up on comment-wise. One of the questions that was posed to me just the other night from our Twitter pal and fellow listener Audible Video, who had asked the question, and I see what you're wondering about. He's saying, I am having a hard time remembering what out-of-the-blue demands Putin issued before the Ukraine war. It was something along the lines of, we demanded that you meet with us and acquiesce to these these things in 2 to 3 weeks, or else. Do you remember? I've been Googling, but all I get is current Ukraine news, and then asking, was it this? But he sent me a YouTube video along with it, and I didn't have time to look at the video, but I know what you're talking about. And I went back looking in the archives of the Pocket account, and there should really be looking in the archives of the show. But yeah, we had that discussion, and didn't they? This would have been something that they set a deadline around. Is it December 17th or thereabouts? Anybody else have memory of this? But that might help us figure things out. I'll search to try and answer that, but I don't think it was anything unusual or anything all that different from what he was asking for in the last couple of weeks, now that it's been an open invasion situation. It was, again, some sort of guarantee against Ukrainian membership in NATO and, signing over, I guess, de facto control of the place to him, basically. And I don't think the demands were that different. It was just we were all puzzled over the vehemence with which they were pressing these claims and the importance they were attaching to a mid-December deadline about something, right? 12th or the 17th or thereabouts. And then the story that came out that they were telling people in Russia to brace for war and possibly even nuclear exchanges in all of this. And we were commenting on how Americans were caught flat-footed. We've not been discussing that at all. And then there was, of course, the run-up to the invasion, during which Americans, pundits, ran around saying, no, he's not really going to invade Ukraine. And I forgot what a tremendous advance warning listeners of the show actually got as we discussed what was going on. in diplomatic circles. And so I guess none of us were surprised by the invasion. I'll see if I can dig up the specific examples, though, that we shared at that time. Greg has sent on other news as well, including this bit from this tweet from Heather Cagle saying Speaker Pelosi is going off in the Whips meeting about Dems who took down the COVID preparedness package last week, as Greg was mentioning on his way out the door. Although the quote is, "I am really heated up about this," which doesn't sound nearly as much like she was going off as I'm sure there are other quotes that maybe didn't make the paper. But yeah, well, she ought to be annoyed about it. And, it looks pretty stupid. The upshot of this is, hey, we don't want the money taken away from us. And now here we are with the money taken away from us. So hopefully that resolves itself quickly and puts us in a position to be able to head off another wave. It really would be nice, by the way, if we could keep things under control. Internationally, vis-a-vis other nations of the world, the United States doing much better in terms of, the nightly charts of where we fall internationally in terms of cases per 100,000 and or per million, as we do it on Worldometers, and deaths per million. For much of the earlier part of the pandemic, the United States was nightly on the charts of the top 10 in terms of the number of people infected per million overall, and as well as the deaths. And then we sort of started to fade back. In the U.S. now, one, through being able to suppress numbers, yes, but also the inability of those other countries able to suppress their numbers, and they're having trouble with their vaccines, etc. They're having it worse. It's not only that we're doing better, but we're now on the brink of dropping to about 50th in the world. A significant drop in terms of the population infected, the number of cases per million. Where we haven't had obviously that doesn't drop; it's a cumulative number, but the growth rate has slowed compared to it's unfair sometimes when we're talking about the really tiny countries and other microstates and isolated populations where if there's a small total number of infections can happen, but it spikes the numbers in terms of the very small population there. But now Faroe Islands, Denmark, after dropping all of its restrictions, rocketing up the charts as well. Iceland having problems. I don't know how they're doing with their restrictions. Faroe Islands, all of these micro states. Denmark not really a microstate, but it ain't a big country. Anyway, where the United States is dropping through the ranks as other countries rocket up through the ranks. We'll see whether that changes if the BA2 situation reaches us in large numbers anytime soon. Deaths down to about 18th or so in the world. I thought you might be interested in an update on those things. But it would be nice if we could maintain it, because it's something we're not really talking about in terms of, when Trump was president, we were in the top 10, and sometimes on both of these lists, the number of infections and deaths per million versus everybody else on the list being, microstates. Andorra and San Marino were our company, but the United States, with its enormous population, was still somehow so infected that it stayed on the top of these lists. And now with Joe Biden, if you're looking for progress vis-a-vis the rest of the world, we're down near 50. So, that's pretty good. Can we stay there? And it might depend on whether or not we manage to fix the problem that Nancy Pelosi is so heated up about. And I guess it's worth noting at any rate, even though the rhetoric isn't the strongest I've ever heard, I guess she doesn't get like that. So when she's heated up, she tends to get her way on these things. And when it's vote counting, she tends to find the ability to, make it happen. So, once it gets to the vote counting stage, we trust she'll make a difference. Let's see. All right, well, that does look like... here's another story that actually looks like garbage. We'll scroll past that one. And jump into... back into Pocket and choose one of these longer stories to present to you here. Here is a weird one. Let's try this one. Right alongside the story from Georgia the other day. This is a slightly different approach to disenfranchising and disempowering black populations here in the United States. But just like that story, Gutted, that we were reading the other day about the Georgia County Elections Office being hollowed out and replaced by an all-Republican-controlled board. This is a different setting, but same worry here. Brett Kelman, reporter with Kaiser Health News, formerly of the Tennessean, apparently, among other places, who reports this, who tweets this. In Tennessee, a small, predominantly black town is poised to get a huge economic boost from the construction of a big Ford factory. This is awesome, right? Great, fantastic. How wonderful. So we can't let that lie, because then the state government, Tennessee, gave them an ultimatum, this town. Dissolve your town charter or we will seize control of your finances. In other words, a big windfall is coming, and lest it fall on a town that is predominantly black and we don't get to siphon off the money for ourselves or give it to white people, I guess, we gotta put a stop to this. So, poof, you're no longer a town at all, and we can take all your money. I don't know. Let's go see what this is about. It's not Brett's own story, I guess. He then goes on to say, fantastic reporting by Anita Wadhwani. That's my best stab at her last name. It's Wadhwani. So, anyway, yes, this is kind of interesting. And Kelman continues to tweet here saying, I'm seeing replies to this saying that Ford should step in and stop this. While that may seem unlikely, the company has thrown its weight around in Tennessee politics before. When Ford said jump, Tennessee jumped. So that is interesting. Referring to his own tweet from back in October here, it's worth noting Tennessee lawmakers spent days crafting bills to weaken COVID-19 regulations without any testimony from doctors or small business owners. But when they get a worried text from Ford on Friday night, bills start getting amended right away. All right. Related, he says, last year when Tennessee politicians approved a massive tax incentive package to get this Ford plant built, one lawmaker joked it was evidence the Civil War wasn't over and the South was, quote, winning. All right, maybe we better look into this story here. From the Tennessee Lookout, this is akin to a hostile takeover. State officials ask residents of a small, predominantly black town near the site of a new Ford investment to forfeit their city charter or face takeover because you're prosperous, and we have to stop that, I guess. Mason, Tennessee is the dateline here. The Tennessee Comptroller issued an unusual appeal last week to residents of this small majority black town, which occupies fewer than 2 square miles in rural West Tennessee. In my opinion, it's time for Mason to relinquish its charter. Comptroller Jason Mumpower, really, Mumpower, yeah, just like it sounds, wrote in a letter mailed to each one of Mason's 1,337 property owners. This is an extraordinary interdiction here. Mumpower urged local residents to, quote, encourage your local officials to do what's necessary to allow Mason to thrive. There is no time to waste. State comptrollers, responsible for financial oversight of local government, typically communicate directly with elected local leaders and not their constituents. We have not issued a letter to citizens like this before, Comptroller spokesman John Dunn said, noting it is, quote, unprecedented for us to publicly call for a town charter to be relinquished. So let's find out why it's happening. Here's a picture of Tennessee Comptroller Jason Mumpower, and he's a lot less black looking than you would think. That is to say, he appears to be a white guy, to no one's surprise. But the comptroller's unprecedented public call-out comes at an unprecedented time, not only for Mason, but for the state. Mason, located in the southeastern corner of Tipton County, now finds itself with some of the most coveted real estate in Tennessee. You can't let that lie. It's one of the nearest towns to the massive new site to be built for Blue Oval City, a key component in Ford Motor Company's multi-billion-dollar pivot to electric vehicle manufacturing. So like the future and everything. I'm a little creeped out by Blue Oval City, but that's part of their logo. And corporate towns always give me the creeps, but okay. Mumpower's letter has infuriated Mason's part-time elected officials who insist they have no intention of ceding their town's 153-year-old charter, which would subsume the largely African-American majority Democratic community under the governance of Tipton County, which is predominantly white and Republican. This is our home. We were born and raised here. This is the Ukraine of Tennessee, apparently, being overrun by the Russia of Tipton County. This is our home. We were born and raised here. The majority of the town is homegrown people that live here, Vice Mayor Virginia Rivers said. He is trying to conquer, and divide us. It is like them. It is akin to a hostile takeover, and it's not hard to figure out why here, why now. Town leaders are accusing Mumpower and other state officials of bigfooting a long-ignored, largely black community now that a major investment is heading its way. Mason is 60% black and includes descendants of men, women, and children enslaved in the area before emancipation. For more than a century, the town was led by white elected officials. That changed in 2016 when, you'll never believe it, fraud and mismanagement allegations led to the resignations of nearly all City Hall officials, all of whom were white. Mason's current mayor, vice mayor, and 5 of its 6 aldermen are black. It's because of the black people that are in office, said Rivers, who first became vice mayor in 2021. That is, why are they looking to revoke the charter? It's because of the black people that are in office. And it's because of all the places in the world Blue Oval could have selected, they selected here. There's no way Mason won't prosper and grow, so now they want to take it away from us. Mason lies just 5 miles from the future site of Blue Oval City, Ford Motor Company's 4,100-acre electric truck and battery plant, Joe Manchin, landed by state officials last year with a nearly $1 billion package of taxpayer incentives. So, the oldest trick in the book. It worked. Some state officials can certainly be pleased to have landed it. It's interesting, though, that now that they've landed it in the state, that was the aim, right? We're going to give you this tax package so long as you locate your new plant in Tennessee. Okay, we will. Not near the black people. What's wrong with you? That all of a sudden now they have, we meant different part of Tennessee. The operation is expected to generate 27,000 new jobs and $22 million annually in state taxes after its planned 2025 opening. I still don't see the problem here. It's not like the place is going to be owned by Mason, or even that Mason will collect taxes from it. It's its own entity, and they got all these tax incentives. It's just what? People will work there? Anyway, Highway 79, which links Blue Oval to Memphis, runs right past Mason's small central district. Its city hall, fire station, police station, an abandoned gas station, maybe you should open up again, and the remnants of, it's electric vehicles. Anyway, and the remnants of a grocery store that burned down 3 years ago after a semi-truck veered through it. Not even a convoy, just, out there doing whatever. It also leads visitors to pit stops on off-the-beaten-path foodie maps of the South. It's home to Gus's world-famous fried chicken, a small, counter-serving, black-owned restaurant that rose to fried chicken fame after Oprah Winfrey stopped by. So that's legit, right? Bozo's Hot Pit Barbecue. All right, I'm sure it's good. I'd go. bozos, but all right. A half a block away is a destination for barbecue fans and clowns. The white-owned restaurant was featured in the Johnny Cash biopic. Is it? Do they say biopic? I don't know why people say it, but picture, right? Or is it biopic? I don't know what the hell. Anyway, it was featured in Walk the Line, which is great. Also, I don't know, but all right. So there's some prosperity in it for everybody here. Let's just take it away from black people. The Exit 39, the new I-40 off-ramp, slated to bring interstate traffic directly to Blue Oval City, lies 4.5 miles door-to-door from the town center. And CSX Railroad runs directly through the town on a route that will take it straight to the Blue Oval campus. Where to house an estimated 33,000 temporary workers needed to construct the site and the 27,000 permanent workforce needed when the plant opens in 2025 has been a central preoccupation for county and town mayors in Tipton, Haywood, and Fayette counties, all within commuting distance of Blue Oval's campus. According to Mumpower, Mason's leadership is ill-equipped to manage the challenges and opportunities ahead, which we can tell already because reasons. Government isn't working for the people who live in Mason now, and people and companies are not going to invest in Mason, Mumpower said. So what's the problem? Leave them alone. The opportunity for growth is at their doorstep, and I don't want to see the people of Mason to lose that opportunity. That's how it's said. They are about to be bypassed if their city leaders don't make responsible decisions. Now, remind you, these are the people who replaced the entire city government in 2016 because they were full of fraudsters. So it seems like they're a lot better prepared than they were in 2016, and it's not that long ago, 2016. I mean, certainly got to be open to the possibility that the people who replace them aren't great or the best in the world or maybe even any better than the people that they replaced, but no indication of it here, certainly. I mean, could be open to the possibility if you want to make the argument, and I guess they are making the argument, and I am rejecting it, so I guess I am not open to it, but at least I recognize that about myself. But enough about me. The story continues. Mumpower points to a 20-year history of fiscal mismanagement, including 2 major fraud investigations that resulted in criminal indictments. He also points to a history of financial accounting challenges that include town officials missing their annual audit deadlines each year since 2001. So I guess that problem at least continues. The financial disclosures for the past 2 years are running late. Between 2004 and 2016, Mason's financials were in such disarray they were, quote, unauditable. But 2016 is a breaking point with the former government, right? Thankfully, we already know that from earlier in the article. Mason also has the highest property tax rate in Tipton County, funds used in large part to employ 26 people on the town's payroll. And that might not even be surprising. Incorporated towns just generally tend to have higher tax rates because they have to be responsible for their own infrastructure, whereas county or unincorporated areas of the county have the entire tax base of the county to draw from. Mason operates its own water and gas utilities. City officials have been transferring utility payments into their general operating fund to cover expenses, contrary to Tennessee law. The state's Water and Wastewater Financing Board is currently investigating that at the board's last meeting, it threatened to subpoena city officials. And the recent closure of the West Tennessee Detention Facility, one of the biggest taxpayers in Mason, will only make the situation worse, according to the comptroller. The facility, operated by Core Civic, I guess is that a private prison then, closed down under the Biden administration rule barring private operators from housing federal prisoners. I'm not sure there's a full understanding of operating a town, Mumpower said, but I have questions about that, and it might just be that the black residents there, have specific concerns about perhaps being unfairly or in inordinate numbers incarcerated in such a facility and, would rather get their revenue elsewhere and are willing to accept the closure of the facility as a good trade-off for the country in general. But I don't know. I'm making assumptions here. Let's see. Mumpower's ultimatum comes next. Mumpower has offered an ultimatum. Either city officials decide to rescind its charter, bringing Mason under the authority of the Tipton County government. Remember, local control, unless local control sucks, in which case control from further away if there are white people in control there. So, that, or the comptroller's office will take full financial control, just directly, overseeing the town's budget with the authority to approve any expenditure of $100 or more. It's a little draconian. The latter would almost certainly lead to budget cuts, benefit cuts, and possibly layoffs in city government. Mumpower bristled at Rivers' suggestion that race is playing a role in the state's approach. No, it's offensive and difficult to respond to such a short-sighted comment as that, he said. On Thursday, a standing-room-only crowd of Mason residents crammed into the pews and stood leaning against the walls of Cedar Grove Missionary Baptist Church at a meeting called by city officials to address Mumpower's criticisms. Now is the time for you to hear the rest of the story, Rivers said. Good, please. Let's see. Don't sign away your charter. Keep your rights. Rivers said the elected officials were completely blindsided by the comptroller's statements. Mason is in a deep hole, she said, but the roots of that hole trace back to fraud and mismanagement that occurred during previous administrations and that the current administration has made progress in fixing. In 2011, a former Mason town clerk pleaded guilty to embezzling $100,000 in taxpayer funds. In 2016, a former public works superintendent was indicted by a Tipton County grand jury after investigators discovered he had paid himself an extra $600,000 between 2007 and 2015. The town's financial problems stretch back even further. 2001 state examination of the town's finances found numerous accounting errors in tax and court collections. This administration inherited $500,000 in debt, Rivers said. In 2015, after fraud allegations emerged, nearly the entire town government resigned, leaving a newly elected junior alderman, Gwen Kilpatrick, to assume the office of mayor. Kilpatrick became the city's first black mayor. Since then, the city's leadership has remained largely African American. And since then, Rivers said, city officials have worked to pare the town's debt that accrued during prior administrations while planning for a future with parks and paved streets and a new codes department, infrastructure improvements, and beautification projects. In the past 3 years, city finance officials have completed 5 of its past due financial audits. By the end of this year, they expect to be caught up. Of the 26 people on the town's payroll, 6 are part-time leadership employees, including the mayor, vice mayor, and alderman, who collectively earn just $1,100 per month. Collectively? Wow. The remainder of employees, police, fire, utility, public works, keep basic city infrastructure running. It's kind of hard to go through this and not be recognized as a city that's trying to progress, Rivers said. It seems like no matter what we do, we're knocked down. Why didn't they hold the previous administrations responsible? Town officials won't cede their charter, and they plan to fight any effort to take over the city financially, Rivers said. And she told residents they are enlisting outside help. Gloria Sweetlove, president of the Tennessee State Conference NAACP, said she showed up at the town meeting to offer support and to marshal resources. Good. Community organizing is what can help get it done. You are in a nice little spot, a sweet spot, and a lot of people want your land, Sweetlove said. If you need to fight, I will fight with you. Don't sign away your charter. Keep your rights. The comptroller initiated a public airing of the dispute, releasing its letter to residents, to reporters statewide. But county officials, with outside assistance, have begun their own counter-messaging. Will black people's land be stolen in Tennessee again? A headline in the Tennessee Tribune, a statewide black paper, read last week. Mumpower is equally prepared to act, and he said, citizens of Mason have nothing to worry about if they decide to rescind their charter. What are they holding on to? Mumpower said, my heartfelt request is to let us help you. A church is not a building. What is it? A church is not a building. The community of Mason is not the city charter. It's the people. There will still be a community of Mason. I will just run it and be able to determine what happens with everything over $100 there. And I'm sure you'll be happy with that. Well, that's kind of weird and a little ominous and a little scary. So I'm glad we got this one brought to our attention. And it was, another great issue spotted by Hannah Jones, right? I think that's where we happened to see that one come to our attention. Or I think maybe I had seen somebody else bring that one up too, and it got her eye too, and that always helps. But a situation not likely to make national headlines until it's too late, unfortunately. So we'll give you a little heads up on that. And you'll know about it before it happens, and maybe you can pitch in and find some way to help them fight the good fight and stay afloat there for long enough to be on hand when this new plant opens. And yeah, interesting that electric vehicles being produced there, batteries. Joe Manchin, it's really going to happen here in America. But hopefully he won't resent it happening in a black part of the country. In Tennessee, maybe the same thing could be done in West Virginia. You never know, but a little investment could go a long way. Maybe that's what he's holding out for. I have no idea what kind of operator he really is under that rough and kind of dumb exterior. Anyway, time now to get out of getting myself in further trouble and hand that responsibility over to Justice Putnam with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. He's much better attuned to this stuff and probably won't put his foot in it as readily as I do. Stay tuned to find out.
From networksradio.com, you have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Well, look at this. To no one's surprise, or what should be no one's surprise, the second story he's got listed for today is the state comptroller will take over majority black town of Mason, Tennessee, just ahead of the Ford electric truck and battery plant being built nearby. So we're on the same page. Would you like better and more in-depth and smarter coverage of it? Stay tuned.